and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm Lisa Curcio. Today I've got a Halloween card for you that has easy steps to make an expanding gatefold card. Now I've got other card samples to share with you towards the end of tonight's video, so make sure you hang with me. And as always, I will have a free project sheet linked down in the video description for you below. That's going to lead you to the pictures, the cutting dimensions, and the supplies for all of the cards I'm going to share with you this evening. And during tonight's premiere, we love to interact with you. So do me a favor, log into your YouTube account, which requires your Gmail address. That's going to allow you to chat during the live chat, or perhaps you're here watching the replay. Now with me in the live chat, you'll see that name in blue, Gina Curcio Hawley. Gina is my daughter. She works with me here at Lisa's Stamp Studio, and along with me is an avid stamper. So we're here to interact with you live and to answer your questions. So please reach out to us during the live chat tonight. And if you haven't noticed, some of those names in the chat and comments have a special icon in front of them. Those are called badges. In addition to that, they also have custom emojis to use because they're part of my YouTube channel memberships. For just 99 cents, they're going to be able to have designation here in the live chat and in the comments that designates they're supporting here Lisa's Stamp Studio. If you click on the join button next to the subscribe button here on YouTube, you can get all the information if you're using a laptop computer. All right, we're ready. Let's get started. We're going to begin with a piece of basic black cardstock as the base for this fun fold card. Now I'm going to be using my paper trimmer by Stampin' Up. I absolutely love this because of the clear cutting guide and because the scoring and the cutting blade stay on the track at the exact same time. You can navigate them up and down out of the way. The first score line is going to be at 2 inches. So I'm going to use that ledge here at the top. There's also one at the bottom. Once I have that aligned, we can drop that arm and then score. We're going to move over now to 3 1/8 of an inch and score. The next one is at 5 3/8 of an inch. And the last one, we're going to open up that extendable arm because we're going to go over to 6 1/2 inches, making sure it's nice and straight across that top ledge, and then we'll score. I'm going to use my bone folder to reinforce those score lines. I know it's going to be difficult to see. The 2 that are here at the center are actually going to come forward. So I'm going to actually make what's called a mountain fold. So you'll see that they make a peak. And then the other 2 are going to come forward. They're going to come this way and then this way. I'm going to flip this upside down. I'm going to start in the center. This is a good time to check to make sure that these ends are nice and straight and then reinforce them. This one's going to come back on itself. And then the same thing now on this side. Again, I'm going to check them to make sure they're nice and even and then reinforce it. So this is what we have. Now you're going to want to work on this while it's flat so that we can put the fun fold together when we're all finished. There's going to be a section in the front of the card as well as the back of the card that we're going to be able to decorate. And I'm using a piece of basic white cardstock here. I'm using the Potions and Spells bundle, stamps and coordinating dies. They're offered as a bundle so you can save 10% when you get both. Of course, they are sold separately if you'd like. I'm going to start with the cauldron on this one. Ahead of time, I went ahead and I die cut that from black cardstock, nice and easy. But I knew that I wanted to use the die here inside the die set. Now, of course, you can die cut this from designer paper or even from regular cardstock, but I wanted to make this a 2-for-1 and give you a really easy technique to use for this image. I'm going to push that off to the side. I'm going to bring in my artboard. I love to use this whenever I'm doing anything a little bit messy because it's going to keep my work surface clean and I don't have to worry about saturating scrap paper. I'm going to go ahead and lay that here, and I'm going to do a very simple watercolor technique. Good news, you would have to have no experience for this. As a matter of fact, it is fabulous for the kids to do as well. I'm going to start with Granny Apple Green ink. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to create a palette using a clear block. So I'm going to tap that right inside of here. I'm going to bring in a rag, and then I'm going to use one of the water painters. Now these come in a 3-pack with different size bristles. Now this is self-contained, which means you can put tap water down inside. If your tap water has a lot of filament in it, I'm going to recommend you use distilled or filtered water so that you don't block the plunger in here. Because I'm going to be using a lot of water, I would probably drain this pretty quickly. I'm going to bring in a cup with a little bit of water. It's just off your screen. I'm going to remove that cap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some water from that cup and I'm going to water this way down. I want this to be really, really runny. And then guess what? We're just going to splatter it on top of here. The more water you add, the thinner the color is going to be and the lighter it can turn out. Don't worry about leaving some white areas. We actually want that. Now, if you're really concerned about rubbing, you can just tap it on. You're going to have those light and dark areas, and that is what we want. Next step is to bring in my heat tool because I don't have the patience to wait for it to dry. The Stampin' Up! Heat tool has some great features. First of all, it has two settings. One, which I love for vellum, and two, for paper. This is watercolor paper. It also has an encased nozzle, which means once this gets hot, it's going to retain its heat. It has a collapsible stand, which is great for traveling. Make sure that your hands don't cover the vents. That's for ventilation. And then we're going to go ahead and turn this on, and I'm going to dry the paper. I'm going to hold my fingers off to the side to protect them because it gets very, very hot. This is just going to speed up the drying process. Now you can see that it dries very, very quickly, but we're going to go ahead and add another color. I'm going to take that clear block, I'm going to wipe it off. I'm making sure that it's good and clean, and I'm going to bring in Old Olive ink, and we're going to do the same thing and create a palette. This ink that's here, you don't have to waste it. Tap your cardstock in it and pick it up. The different variations of the tone, because this is light and this is dark, is going to look fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and just wipe that off. I'm going to bring in my block once again, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a lot more water, and this time we are going to splatter it randomly. Like I said, this requires no skill whatsoever. I'm going to recommend that you cover as much of the paper as possible. This way you can use all the little nooks and crannies for what we're going to do next with it. The secret to this now is to either let it dry or use the heat tool once again. And as I mentioned to you, I'm not very patient, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the heat tool on this to speed up the drying. Placing my gun on 2, we're going to go ahead and dry the watercolor paper. Even once the paper appears to be dry, go ahead and tap on any excess ink that you have. We want those splatters. And you can flip it upside down and heat set it from the other side as well. I've just rinsed the brush, and I'm just going to make sure that the bristles are all nice and close together. There's nothing worse than a paintbrush that has lots of stray hairs on it when you go to cap it. Now that this is dry, we can go ahead and take our die and we can place it on top of here. Now there's lots of different size bubbles here, and you can choose as many or which ones that you'd like, and we're going to place them on here as well. Now, if you're like me, you find just the right spot for your die, and then you have to worry about it shifting when you put it through your die cutting machine. And that's where the Post-it labeling and cover-up tape comes into play. I cannot work without this stuff. It is amazing. You can go ahead and rip it into any size that you want, but what's going to happen is it's going to tack the die onto the paper so that when you die cut it, it won't move. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to die cut this as well as some bubbles. You can see the intensity and the differentiation of the colors, which is what makes this look really interesting and quite realistic. Don't throw away that tape that you use. Go ahead and either put it on the handle of your die cutting machine or right back here on the cartridge. You can reuse this numerous times. You'll find this product linked for you on my website under Shop My Favorite Things and then Craft Room Favorites. It's not a Stampin' Up! Product, but I use it with all my stamping and I absolutely love it, and I think you will too. I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet because we're going to put these pieces together. I have the cauldron here, and of course I have that little oozing image here, and I'm going to use liquid glue for that, and I'm going to use this, my Precision Glue Press. I absolutely love this product. You'll find this linked for you on my website as well. You can see that it's small, it fits in the palm of my hand. It does come with glue already in it, so go ahead and use what's there, no sense in wasting it. But when it was emptied, I squeezed about 2 bottles of the multi-purpose liquid glue sold in my online store inside this bottle. It has a small precision tip, which I absolutely love. Now, because I struggle with arthritis here in my basal joint, I was very worried that I wasn't going to be able to squeeze the trigger. But this is incredible, and I want you to be able to watch my fingers as I go ahead and I prime this here on the silicone craft sheet. I'm going to go ahead and give that a squeeze, but you can see, look how little I'm actually pulling, and you can see how tiny I can get the glue. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue here to the back. Now, the multi-purpose liquid glue is fantastic because it's very, very strong, and it dries quickly. So I'm just going to attach this here near the top, and then just give that just a couple seconds for it to set. Now, while it does, I want to talk to you about the cradle for this. This is actually going to sit down inside the pink stopper down inside of there. When it's down inside of there, you're going to see that the tip comes into contact with the stopper, and guess what? Not clog. I absolutely love this. Now, when you're ready to store it, there is a decorative needle cap, and that just screws on. And the best part of all, you can just keep refilling the bottle. I absolutely love this. It has been a game changer for me, and I find myself using liquid glue a lot more than I ever did before. I'm going to come back to that piece of paper we're going to add, and I'm just going to put this here for placement. So I have an idea where I can stamp a little bit in the background. Now there's an adorable image in the stamp set that has what I'm calling like some sparkles to it, but I want to stamp some of that here in the background. So let's go ahead and protect the work surface first. So I'm using some scrap grid paper here. And for this, I'm going to use the Old Olive ink pad. It's a little bit darker than the Granny Apple Green, but it's going to give us some depth to this project. Because the Granny Apple Green is lighter than the Old Olive, I'm going to ink this up and I'm going to stamp off one layer of ink on my scratch paper. One ink pad will produce several shades of color, so keep that in mind. When you ink it up, you can always stamp off and determine how light or how dark that you want it. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that, and I'm going to stamp off, and I'm going to stamp some images here. And I'm going to do that in just various places here to create a random background. We want this to have a little bit of texture to it, even though we're going to add, of course, the bubbles and the cauldron. Now that that's finished, I'm going to come back to the silicone craft sheet. I'm going to work on top of here because we are going to attach this. Now, because this is a fun fold card, you're going to want to be cognizant of where you put your adhesive, or in my case, the dimensionals. You want to make sure that they don't extend past the white layer here. Otherwise, when you close the card, because this does fit in a standard A2 envelope, it's going to stick together. So I'm going to flip this upside down. I'm going to grab my full-size dimensionals, and I'm going to use my paper piercing tool attachment here on my Take Your Pick tool. And I'm going to make sure that I work within the inside perimeters of this because I want to make sure it's going to close properly. I'm going to place some here near the top, but I'm not going to get too close because that's going to make more sense in a minute. I'm going to place them here and here. Now I want to stabilize those legs because I know that they're narrower than the top. So I'm reaching for my mini dimensionals, and I love those because they're already pre-cut and ready to go. We'll put those here, and then let's go ahead and remove those paper backings. I love this tool because pinching off the paper backings is really difficult when you have arthritis, and that little stabbing motion does all the work for me. This now is going to get attached here near the bottom. When you flip this over, there should be absolutely no dimensionals or adhesive showing from the back side. I have far more bubbles here that I'm probably going to need, which is fantastic because I can always save them for another project. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start adhering these. Normally, I would place them out before I adhere them so I get an idea of placement. But since I've already made the card once before, I've got a pretty good idea of where they're going to go. I'm going to use my favorite little tiny reverse tweezers. Look at the needle point on these. Aren't these fantastic? I have those linked for you too on my website. So I'm just going to hold on to that, and that's going to allow me to keep my fingers out of the way and add that precision glue. This now I'm going to go ahead and tuck a little bit, and I want that just coming outside of the cauldron. I'm going to take the next one, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue to this one as well. And this time I want this one going this way. So I'm just creating a little bit of a scene here. And because there's varying sizes, you can determine which ones you want to use. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to build this one up with the medium size, and this one I'm going to place here in the middle. Now it's just a matter of decorating this to make this look realistic. I'm going to go ahead and add some liquid glue to the back of each of these and place them here on the cardstock. Now that those are all adhered, you can see the density of the different colors on that watercolor paper. The secret to this really easy and messy technique is to let the first layer of ink dry before you lay the second layer. That's how you're going to get the depths of the two tones. We're going to come back here to the card base, and we're going to make this nice and flat so that we can work with it. We're going to take that panel that we just created, and that's going to get adhered here. So I'm going to flip that over, and because I have my liquid glue already out, we're going to go ahead and add that around the outside corners. And I love that it's so small so I can get those corners easily. And I'm just going to center this on this panel. Remember that the glue dries clear. These panels here on the outside, I opted for designer series paper. Believe it or not, this comes from the Flowering Zinnia pack. And the one reason I love the Designer Series paper with Stampin' Up! Is because it's double-sided. One side typically has a theme. The other side is generic, which means you can use it all year round on all different kinds of projects, just like I'm doing here. So we're going to add one panel there, and then we're going to add the other panel here. Now, if this is your first time visiting my channel, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Don't forget to click that subscribe button and the bell icon and the word all so that YouTube will send you notifications when I upload new content so that you can be here with us. All right, so that's it for here, but I thought these were kind of plain. So from that exact same die set, I die cut the bristles for the broom and the handle. And I did it in black just to keep cohesiveness to my project. You see the little circle here at the bottom of the die? This is why I absolutely love this, because there's a little spot here for you to attach the broom. Now you can make the handle as short or as long as you'd like. And as I said, this is going to dry very, very quickly because of the multi-purpose liquid glue. I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back side. Now you might be thinking, looking at the size of these and even the mini dimensionals, how are those going to fit? Even the mini dimensionals are too big for the broom handle. So I'm going to give you a tip that has worked really, really well for me over the years. I'm grabbing my glue dots. What I like to do is pull them off with my take your pick tool, and then I want to ball them up, kind of making it long and thin if I can. They are very sticky, so I'm not worried about my hands, taking off the tackiness. By rolling them and placing them on the broom handle, two things are actually happening. It's actually creating a little elevation because it's been balled up. But what it's also doing is it's providing some adhesive for this to stick. Glue dots are very, very sticky if you've ever used them, so that you know that they're going to work really well. Once those are in place, let's go ahead and brace that paper and remove those paper backings. I'm going to go ahead and take this now, and I'm going to put this here center on the left-hand side of the Designer Series paper. Remember, there are dimensionals here, so this I'm just going to give a tap so that the glue dots are in contact with the Designer Series paper, and look. Do you see how there's elevation here? It works fantastic. I thought this needed a little pizzazz and we want to bring in that white. So I made a little tiny bow using white baker's twine. I'm going to make a little dot of liquid glue right there with that precision glue press. And I'm going to take that knot and I'm going to attach it here. Now you might be wondering why I didn't use a glue dot. And the reason is the glue dot is going to be really, really big compared to the size of the knot on this bow. So while I have the glue press out and I know I can get a little tiny dot, I'm just going to go ahead and attach that there. Now let's work on this side. I have a scrap piece of basic white cardstock here, and I have the black Memento ink. These images are all coming from the same stamp set. And this little stack of books I thought would be perfect for the next side. I did color this ahead of time, but if you're new to alcohol-based Stampin' Blends markers, I want to give you just a couple tips. They're sold in a combination, so you're going to get the light and the dark shade of any specific color. They are dual-ended, which are delineated here by the line underneath the cap. Whether you use the light first or the dark first does not matter. It's a matter of preference. Because this is so small and it's really difficult to blend, this is a question I get asked a lot. And this is where I typically will use the dark first because I don't want this to bleed and go outside the lines. For this, I'm going to use the chiseled side. So I'm going to come in here on the one side and across the bottom, and I'm going to add some darker tones to this area. Remember that alcohol-based markers have a tendency for the ink to spread because of the alcohol. It's going to need a few seconds for the alcohol base to evaporate before you should add more color. That's going to prevent the bleeding outside of the stamped lines. You're always going to want to use Memento black ink because this is a water-based ink. And this is alcohol, which means that's going to prevent the bleeding. Now that that's had a little time to evaporate, I'm going to put the light shade right over it. So I'm dragging the dark up through to the top where I want to add more color. As this dries, you're going to notice that it becomes more of its natural tone, which means that the bottom portion is going to be darker, but it's going to look blended to the top portion. Best part of all is that it has a coordinating die, so it went ahead and did all the work for me. I'm going to bring my card back in. I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to add a couple dimensionals here to the back side. Remember, if you're going to mail your card, that you should make sure that the dimensionals are well balanced for mailing, since your card will go through the mail meter at the post office. This now is going to go here near the bottom. Now I thought it was a great time for me to use some more of those dies. Now inside the dies, you'll see that there's two beaker bottles here. There's a tall one and a round one. So I've got the tall one here, and I just die cut it from white cardstock. But do you remember all that beautiful paper that we used for die cutting? Well, there was a lot left over because I had made some previously, and I thought, oh my gosh, it'd be perfect for the fill image. The best part of the dies is that there are fill image dies for these bottles. I went ahead and I die cut that ahead of time. I'm going to use my reverse tweezers once again to help me pick it up. We're going to add some of that precision glue press glue right to the back side. And then this is going to go in the center. Now you're going to leave a little margin of that beaker bottle showing all the way around. I did do the round one ahead of time. So let's go ahead and let's flip these over, because now we're going to add some dimensionals and elevate them. Again, make sure that this is well balanced. Now, if you're like me, you're wondering if that little area here might get caught coming in and out of the envelope, and of course for stability, and I agree with you. Here in my studio, I keep a pair of scissors that have red ribbon on them, which indicate they're for those sticky projects. I go ahead and I take my scissors and I cut these mini dimensionals in half while they're right here on the paper. This will allow me now to pick up half at a time and be able to place them in those little tiny tight areas. It's going to give me the elevation that I need, but still keep them nice and small. I'm going to go ahead and brace that paper and remove those backings. Now that we have our dimensionals on the back, we're going to go ahead and put these right on top of those books. That's going to give this a little bit of elevation and give it a little bit of interest. And of course, if you want to go further and add all kinds of embellishments, you certainly can. On the back side is where you're going to write and sign. Now, of course, you can gussy this up even more. This one I kept very simple. I have other samples for you. Wait till you see those. I did stamp the actual sentiment ahead of time. That comes from the same stamp set. But I want to do something here at the bottom to give this a little bit of interest. I've got Memento black ink pad once again, and I'm pulling out the bubbles image from that stamp set, and we're inking that up. I'm going to stamp that here near the bottom. I'm coming back to the Granny Apple Grain ink pad, and once again, we're going to make ourselves a little palette of ink right here. This time I'm bringing in one of the small blending brushes, and I dedicate one to each color family in the small bristles. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to swirl some color on there. I always want to check to make sure that it's not too dark and I can control the ink coverage. And instead of coloring these in with the Stampin' Blends markers, I decided, let's go ahead and use that blending brush. That's going to give us that real fun, smoky appearance, and I can make some areas darker and lighter than others. Now that that's all finished, we can go ahead and we can bring back in the card base. Always check to make sure it's going the right way. And we are going to use some liquid glue, and we're going to add this panel to the center back of this fun fold card. Believe it or not, this card is finished. Let me show you how this works. Remember, these were mountain folds. This is going to come together. These were valley folds, so they're going to come back to the front. So this is going to collapse and fit in a regular A2 envelope, as I said. The great thing about this card is when it comes out of the envelope, it will naturally stand for display, but you're going to have a 3D appearance, which means you're going to see the images on both sides of this as a 3D card. Still plenty of room to write and sign on the back. You can make it flat in order to do so. Of course, if you need more room, you can add additional panels. Very, very simple, but yet very striking. And no additional postage. I almost forgot the greeting. I stamped this on a sliver of white cardstock, and I added banner tips using my scissors. I'm going to come in with the mini dimensionals for this. Again, I want to make sure these are well balanced, but I also want to make sure that I don't go too far to the end, because I know it's going to extend just past the cauldron so that the card will close very easily. This now will get attached here near the bottom. When you flip this over, make sure that there's no adhesive on the other side so that when this collapses, it's not going to stick. Now let me share with you those other samples I created for you. This next one is a Christmas card using the Merriest Trees stamp set and the Merriest Trees dies. This is no longer offered as a bundle. It was a carryover product, but look at these dies. There's something here that's very unique about the stamp set that I've thoroughly enjoyed. This one tree will comprise 4 different size trees because there are 4 different dies. So you've got small, medium, large, and extra large, depending on what area of this tree that you want to die cut. Now for this card, I thought it needed a nice big focal point, so I created this. This is using the iconic Celebration Designer Series paper. Went with something very untraditional with pinks and mauves, which are very popular again this year. Brought in some beautiful silver foil to create some shimmer. Added those beautiful dies here and some rhinestones in the center. Again, just like the other card, it is freestanding, has a beautiful 3D appearance, and on the back, this time I added Designer Series paper. So that package includes a lot of patterns that you can mix and match for color coordination. And an area here where I put the sentiment and I added a star just above it. That was from another stamp set. Don't be afraid to borrow from one stamp set to add to another to get just the custom card that you're looking for. Now I have one other. This one uses the Filmed with Fun bundle, stamp set and coordinating dies. And just like the other one, this has some fun accessory pieces in it as well. These dies coordinate with the Filled with Cheer stamp set that's in the online exclusive that has Christmas images in it as well. I think you'll love those wintry themes to use with these dies. I coupled it with this one, Happiest Days for the Greeting, and that created this card here for a birthday. I used all the stamps, colored them in with Stampin' Blends markers, added some of the die cut balloons that I stamped and die cut, used the really fun, bright and beautiful Designer Series paper, just like this one, of course, freestanding, fun 3D appearance, kept the back very simple on this, but added some stamped images. Really a great fun fold because it's impressive, but yet it's very, very simple. I just want to give you a quick reminder that it is August, and now is the time to use those bonus days coupons that you earned in July. There is no limit to the number that you can actually redeem, so use them all up before August ends. And if you love exclusive ideas, you're going to want to head over to my website and click on memberships. There are 2 levels to choose from. Level 1 is $5 a month, and you're going to get a tutorial to your inbox every single Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, the pictures and the tutorials are not watermarked, so if you are a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator or you teach classes and other events, you are golden with these because you can use these ideas for those events. These are projects I create exclusively for the membership. They are not shared anywhere else. But if level 1 is not enough, then level 2 might be just for you. It includes a monthly fun fold card, a discount code for my PDF tutorial library, and I do random prize patrol giveaways every single month. You'll be able to find all the information over on my website under memberships. While you're over on my website, scroll to the bottom and fill out that little form. We would love to add you to my free weekly e-newsletter where I'm going to continue to inspire you and keep you in the know on everything that's happening with sales and promotions. If you have enjoyed tonight's video, would you do me a favor and click that thumbs up button? It helps me tons here on YouTube. And if you're brand new and haven't subscribed, we would love to have you subscribe as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.